listening to Cody Lundeen's Keep Your Ass Alive, where Cody teaches real people real skills, giving raw, hard survival advice with a hug. And now, broadcasting from somewhere in a high desert wilderness, here's Cody.
Hey campers, welcome to Keep Your Ass Alive, real survival advice for real people. I'm your host, Cody Lundeen, and you're tuning into the only show where you can ask me anything about modern outdoor survival, primitive living skills, urban preparedness, or anything else. Hey, welcome to another episode of Keep Your Ass Alive. I'm your host, Cody Lundeen, and I have a guy named Josh Connor here who I've asked to talk to us about essentially physical fitness. And the reason I brought Josh in and the reason he agreed to is survival situations are inherently physical. If it goes bad, you're dead, right? We're dealing with a human body that can die. There's a lot of situations, if you read about survival situations, which I do because it's part of my job, where if someone would have been more physically fit, if they would have had a little bit more stamina, they might have been literally alive today, right? They might have been able to mitigate that survival situation by being better in shape. Again, survival situations take out your physical body. So the more in shape you can be, potentially the more staying power you'll have in a real-time emergency. So it's important, to keep in shape. And we're here with Josh Connor. Thanks for showing up on Keep Your Ass Alive.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, to talk about physical fitness and potentially some nutrition questions as well. And I want to know right off the bat, what got you into weight training? How long has this been a passion of yours?
It's been a passion since I was about 13 years old. I've always been kind of obsessed with physical fitness in a way because of superheroes and my, action heroes I used to watch as a kid. Arnold Schwarzenegger. I mean, growing up in the 80s, you had all the in shape guys. Everybody was in shape as an actor. It's kind of sad not to see it so much today, but so you were inspired constantly. I mean, through comic books, movie media. It's kind of like that was the thing to do, to be top notch. So I started getting into it really when I was 13, and I was kind of always a little bit of a bigger kid, in terms of like a little bit overweight. So just one day I just kind of just snapped and said, I'm going to change this. And I did.
Awesome.
And I just started running more. I started doing more calisthenics, a lot more weight training. And then before I knew it, I was really in shape and I started winning all these fitness records. So,
really?
Yeah.
In what, 13 years? So we're talking junior high school or
junior high school? Yeah. Actually, I broke a lot of the dip records, pull-up records, cross-country records. I did all kinds of stuff.
No, who's your favorite superhero?
Superman by far.
Right. Now, there's certain copyright infringements we can't get into here, but I think that Kal-El might be sitting at this table. We can't really say that. His Earth name is Josh Connor. But that's cool. What do you think happened to people in the movies where they started to slack off on fitness?
Honestly, don't know. Well, obviously, can't want to get into politics, but I feel like this day and age, being an emasculated male is more attractive than a masculine male. And it's really sad to see because to me, that was the embodiment of what a male is supposed to be, And now these days, it's almost not okay to be like that because you're going to offend people. And I think that's just weird.
You think Superman ever offended people?
I don't know. Probably.
Probably.
Yeah.
While he was saving their life.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Now my next question is your competitions. You've competed, you're pro, right? Tell me about how that started, the competitions. If you're still competing now, give me the rundown on how that worked.
Okay. So first of all, I was pro. Unfortunately, I'm not anymore, and that's okay. I was a natural pro for many, many years. And so I kind of eventually lost that status because I had to get some medical work done. And that's okay. I'm now aiming towards a different goal, and I'd like to become pro again, but just in a different affiliation. So when I started, my main inspiration were Champions Jim, Clinton, Nancy Davis. I mean, seeing those two and the way they were, I just is something I really wanted to do, and I wanted to kind of like be like them in a way. And so my first competition I did was actually with Nancy Davis.
Wow.
When she won the Miss Arizona in 2004.
Wow.
And that was my first one. And I was a heavyweight bodybuilder. I cut as hard as I could, as best as I could. Got some bad advice at the end, kind of got a little flushed over on stage, but thankfully I was only one of 2 competitors and I ended up placing first. So,
wow.
And then as time went on, I just learned more and more stuff. And then in about 2012, I went to the Musclemania and I actually got second place. And then what happened is the guy that got first tested positive for a lot of anabolic steroids. So they ended up awarding me the first place and I ended up getting my pro card.
Wow.
Which then transferred over into the next affiliation I did, which was the IMBA. And then I continued to be a pro through there throughout 2018.
I don't know what does IMBA stand for?
International Natural Bodybuilding Association.
Okay, so we both know there's usually a lot of drug use in hyper pro bodybuilding. What's the deal with the natural? I mean, I know that obviously it's drug free, but when did that start being a thing where people gave a damn about people that were becoming bodybuilders without a bunch of anabolic steroids?
From what I read, it started in the late 90s.
Okay.
Especially with the IMBA and the Musclemania. Those are the 2 most popular ones. And then obviously the OCB. But I feel like the OCB tends to judge people more so on conditioning than anything else. So the size, symmetry, all that stuff doesn't matter. It's kind of like if you show up looking the most Holocaustish, you're going to be the winner.
Wow.
Which to me is not bodybuilding. So I never really went for the OCB. I went for those 2 because they judge according to symmetry, size, and conditioning, all the above. They want the whole package. So that's why I went that route. So
you're going to get back, as far as you're concerned, into the pro circuit. Meanwhile, you mentioned the film and people being less fit. What's your opinion? I have a series of questions to ask you. What's your opinion of physical fitness as in the general population of the United States?
Right now, not so good, honestly. I feel like probably 70% of the United States right now is not physically fit.
Why do you think that's so?
Just walking down the street and observing people, I just noticed that, they're tired in their gait. They're tired in their walk. And it tells me if you had to actually run, what would happen? And it's really sad to see because I feel like as a whole, we have kind of dismissed the idea of physical fitness and healthy eating. And it's more about success monetarily coupled with bad eating. And I feel like alcohol plays a big factor. I mean, everybody that I know that's successful, they're all sitting around drinking, and to me, it's just not a good lifestyle in general. And I feel like if we were to face some kind of apocalyptic event, a lot of people would be hurting.
Interesting. You're on the right podcast for that. Right?
Yeah.
I guess the upside to 70% of people being out of shape is the zombies get them first.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's an upside. Maybe.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. Get in shape. Okay. So you've already kind of stated this, but why do you think physical fitness is important?
I think it's really important because we've been given one body, and that one body, I feel like a lot of people take for granted. And we have this notion that nothing is going to touch us because we're at the top of the food chain. But I feel like you never know what's going to happen. And to me, being ready for anything, I mean, including just for instance, what if you were in the woods and all of a sudden you came across a predator, a bear, a mountain lion? You don't want to be the person that's going to be out of breath after 5 steps. You want to be ready for whatever's going to come your way, fast reflexes, agility, and on top of it, like precise cognition. And to me, when you're not physically fit, your cognition also lacks. Mm-hmm. Your brain is slow. You don't have the fast reflexes of a person that would be physically fit. So to me, that's very important in every single way.
So keep in mind what he's saying. Remember, we prefaced this about having a physically fit body might keep you alive in a survival situation, and totally right on with the cognition as well, which gets into judgment and everything else about how in the hell did I get myself in this potentially life-threatening situation. Now, I've known you for a long time. We may or may not get into that, but I don't know you real well. I think you're a good man, which I think is important.
Thank you.
But are you into preparedness skills, or are you talking about preparedness skills because you're on Keep Your Ass Alive right now?
No, there's a part of me that's into preparedness skills. I mean, I've taken several self-defense gun classes. I've taken a lot of self-defense in general, martial arts. I believe that you always have to be somewhat ready for whatever may come your way. I mean, it's one thing, you don't want to live in a world where you're naive, especially in today's age, because I mean, there's just things that happen all the time. I think there's a certain degree that you have to be with your head on a swivel at all times. And that's kind of me. I'm always prepared for whatever may come my way. And I always try to be very self-aware of my surroundings.
Was that a Josh thing at 13, wanting to get more physically fit, or has that been a Josh thing ever since you've been growing up?
Ever since, actually, believe it or not, I think it was after college. I kind of just ran into a few situations where I didn't feel prepared, and that changed my life.
Really?
So, yeah. And it's just simple things, like my car breaking down in the middle of the desert, 13 miles away from any kind of population.
That'll do it.
Yeah. That really changes your perspective on things, and it makes you more prepared just in case. And on top of it, being in a situation that was scary where there was, cops involved and possible people trying to kill you and
wow,
different countries. It just really changes your perspective on things. Like, you have to be ready by all means necessary with all resources.
Damn. I didn't know Josh would be such a perfect guest on this show. And keep that in mind. And there's some of you probably watching this that have been in life-threatening situations, and you know exactly what he's talking about. And of course, I've been in some scary situations too. So be prepared. That's the motto of this show. And that's why Josh is here. Is there a baseline, in your opinion, when someone can be considered physically fit? What does that look like?
By today's standards, I'm not really sure. By the old standards, it was you could run a mile, or you could, walk X amount of steps without being out of breath. I still kind of hold true to the old fashioned notion that if you're able to just get out of your own way for a long pace, then I think you're okay. And I kind of feel like that's gone by the wayside. And again, that's where I feel like fitness in general is kind of neglected today, because if you look at even schools, the fitness test is gone. And I heard they're just reenacting it to bring it back, which is really great, because I feel like that's a good indicator of how you're going to react in life in general.
No, your answer was swinging more cardio than strength. Do you, the breakdown in the desert, not so much the life-threatening thing potentially. If you had to choose between strength training and cardio for the context of this show and being prepared in general, in your opinion, which one would it be if you had to choose?
Honestly, I think I'd still aim towards strength training. And the reason I say that is because I feel like explosiveness and power are still very essential for survival. And that's just my opinion. But I feel like if you're able to sprint out of a situation instead of actually just kind of jog out, you're going to have a better chance of being ready.
Speed and power.
Yeah.
Okay. The next question is, we've been talking about strength training and endurance or cardiovascular training. What's the difference? For people that don't know, define pure strength training and then define endurance or cardiovascular training for our listeners.
Okay. If you break it down to scientific level, you go into strength training, it's fast twitch muscles, and, via slow twitch muscles. And that's what we call the phosphogenic system. It is accumulation of high powered exercises in short durations. So strength training is squats, deadlifts, power cleans, bench press, maximal output in less time. And so that's a whole different system in your body. But to me, it's also very essential for bad things. So say, for instance, we're going to just correlate this to a situation. You're going to be more prepared to get your way out of a fist fight being in strength training than you are in endurance training. However, the endurance training oxidative system is also kind of important, because and I'm saying this because I do a lot of cardio still too. Oxidative is important because it gives you a longer duration, and it's more on the verge of just getting your body being able to move for longer periods of time. Whereas the strength training is very short duration. And so I can't say really which one is better. I think it depends on the person and what they're going for, but I think both are essential. I think both are good to tap into, whether you just decide to, take a jog in the morning or take a long walk, or just get your body moving in some way or direction with cardio, which is the endurance training. So
I've read some stuff about glucose metabolism. Now, when you talked about it's short twitch and then long twitch for endurance, or what's the terminology for endurance?
So it's more considered slow twitch muscles.
Got it.
Yeah. So that's kind of like the muscles that are going to keep you going for a long time. Fast twitch is more for like short durations.
Do you know there's a term we're both familiar with, hitting the wall, where someone's blown through their available glucose. They need to tap in, in malnutrition or starvation situations, they tap into the body fat, then the muscle tissue, then organ tissue. It's a nasty process. I'm sure I don't want to go there. But as far as the explosive strength training or the cardiovascular endurance training, how does the body handle the glucose needs if you know about each one of those? Because we can only do the explosive speed for so long, right? Do we literally physiologically blow through that glucose that's available right then? Do you know?
That's a really good question. So I actually did a little bit of research. It's not even so much about glucose. It's more about adenosine triphosphate recycling. So you can only do so much with your ATP before it decides to stop. And then all of a sudden it needs like a 30-second boost of rejuvenation. Like, let me bring these back to the surface here.
What rejuvenates it though?
Just your body's oxidative process. So it's the glucose, like you talked about, glycogen, like things like that will help recycle the body into an ATP synthesis again. But there's only so much you can do before your body just literally craps out of ATP, and then it has to recycle itself again.
Do you know the time on that recycling? I know this is all real super variable questions.
It's okay. So say for instance you were doing a maximum squat. The time it takes for that rejuvenation to come back can be anywhere between 1 to 2 to even 3 minutes. It just really depends on the amount of maximal output you put on that. If you threw your body into the fire and you grinded your way up through that squat, it's probably going to take you three minutes to rejuvenate.
Because my head's going into an outdoor survival situation where someone is trying to summit or climb up something or whatever, and they're tanked, they're done, they're spent. What the listener and viewers would, maybe I can get a second wind in X amount of time. That's why I'm asking the question. The context.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. So yeah, I think it's
minutes, not half hour, not 20 minutes, not
minutes. And to me, it also depends on the adrenal output. Obviously, if you're scared for your life, you're probably going to recover a little bit faster.
That's what it's there for.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Let's see. We talked about surviving being a full body experience before we began our interview. What are some exercises or techniques that can give a person greater strength? And what are some exercises and techniques that can go on more the endurance and cardiovascular side?
Okay.
So I know that's a big ass question.
Yeah, it's
strength and cardio. Just break it down a little bit so someone has something to go off to if this is the first time they're considering trying to get in shape.
If you're going to go the strength training aspect, I think more plyometric explosive styles training. So, that comes back to like old school football training.
I don't know what that is. What
like box jumps, power cleans, clean and jerk, things that involve explosiveness and short durations. Also, the squats, the bench press, deadlifts, things of that sort that are basically what we call compound lifting, which involves the entire body. I think those,
as in all the muscle groups, like a deadlift at once, as much as possible. Then?
Yes, exactly.
That's what you mean by compound lifting.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. So, to me, that would be a good thing to throw in for the strength training aspect, including, like I said, plyometric training, which is like jumping up the stairs, like on stadiums, or explosive sprinting up the stairs. And then if you're going to go towards the cardio aspect, I really think that you're better off probably just doing durations of anywhere between 30 to 35 minutes of just perpetual motion. So whether that be on a mountain bike, on a run, whatever you choose, just get your heart rate used to using that system.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes a little while, especially if you're out of shape. You feel like 10 minutes is like an hour.
Mm-hmm.
But if you can get your body used to 30 to 35 minute duration of cardiovascular without dying, you're in pretty good hands.
Awesome. So there's a lot of terminology out there. There's a lot of stuff out there where people think they might have to commit a half a freaking day to being in shape.
Right.
So your target, do you know the target heart rate for that 25 to 35 minutes or so?
It depends on the age, obviously, because that's a big factor. But I tell my clients personally, if you can get your heart rate between 125 to even 135 in a 30-minute duration, you're going to be in shape all the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that person's going to run from the zombies more effectively.
Yes.
Okay.
Exactly.
Okay. I'm going to go into some nutrition questions now and switch gears. I know that here's the big three from my perspective was you have the actual training, you have nutrition, then you have the rest cycle. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
The big three? Is
Yes.
there a fourth?
No, not really, because all those things kind of go hand in hand. I think the big three is accurate.
Okay.
For sure.
So how important is nutrition? We already know kind of the answer to this in relation to physical fitness.
Super, super important. It is literally everything. It is recovery. It is muscle growth. It is immune deficiency disorder recovery. I mean, it is everything. If you really break it down to a science, what you put in your body is going to make who you are.
Wow.
As a person. And I say immune deficiency disorders because there's a lot of cases out there now with people with autoimmune diseases and things like that. If you keep feeding your body the things that's toxic against it, you're going to continually to be sick. If you give your body the things it needs to survive and also get better and heal, your body will no longer be sick. And there's just a lot of science today with that kind of stuff. And it amazes me when people know that they have a sickness, how they still keep poisoning it because they can't get past a certain, let's say, taste. Like, oh, I don't like the way it tastes. It's like, well, do you like the way you feel 2 days after? Because you probably don't, you know?
Do you feel that people in the USA like shit?
Mm-hmm. I do. I feel like we've kind of become, I hate to say it, a gluttonous society that just bases food and social aspects off taste. I don't know. To me, it's like whenever somebody wants to get together, like, oh, let's go to dinner, where everybody sits down and eats like crap. And to me, that's the American norm now. And I'm like, well, why does it have to be crap?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't you eat something healthy and substantial? Or just not even have a social gathering with food at all? Why does food have to be included to be accepted?
Have you traveled around the world a lot?
No, I haven't. I really want to. I mean, I've read about a lot of cultures for sure. And I know some cultures do a lot better than us when it comes to food.
It's different.
Yeah.
And I think that we have unfortunately, we're known for a pretty crappy diet here in this country. It's not that way in a lot of places. I think it's starting to head that way when you see the big box stores in the middle of Thailand and stuff like that. But it's interesting because I know you're way into nutrition. Now, you've trained, yes or no, with a nutritionist before. Have you been advised by one?
Yes.
How does that work? Do you go, hi, I'm Josh Connor. You were doing that and maybe still are because of competitions and because I remember talking to you one time, a long time ago, and you were talking about your nutritionist and you said, he or she said this, but I just feel like I could do, like you were always looking for that little edge. You were always looking to get more bang for your buck with the macronutrients. What's it like training with a nutritionist and why did you go that route?
So I really enjoyed it because I learned a lot. I've learned the basic knowledge in school with nutrition and how to correlate it to, say, bodybuilding or sports in general. The nutritionist kind of took it to a whole new level for me. So it kind of got me outside my box, outside the outside way of thinking. And it was good because then I was actually able to formulate kind of my own thing, knowing what they taught me, which was great. I learned a lot about the macronutrient scale and how it works. I learned about calorie deficiencies, calorie increases, smart calorie increases, as opposed to what we call surplus or bulking, right? So just working with him just made me realize that there's a lot of things that I could apply to myself. And I've learned a lot just from the brief time I was with him for I think it was a year and a half.
Your focus for the questions for him was bodybuilding, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So you were pushing the envelope on bulking up and cutting.
Yes.
Right?
You got it.
So we won't get into that in this conversation, and most people are not going to work with a nutritionist, but you said you learned some stuff in school. I didn't learn jack in school about proper eating. Mm-hmm. So what do you mean you learned some of this in school? Do you mean college or high school?
College, yeah. I had a basic nutrition class.
Got it.
Yeah, where we learned, obviously calorie counting, proteins, carbohydrates, fats, how they work in the system, things like that. But it was again, it was super basic.
Sure.
Yeah. And then obviously reading all the books I did as a kid on bodybuilding nutrition from the 1980s and 1990s, things have changed a lot since then. The science has changed, but it gave you a great base to work with.
Well, that's interesting that you said the science has changed.
Mm-hmm.
In a generality, what's the biggest change you've seen in that nutrition book from the 80s or 90s to what you read in a book now?
Scientific accountability. The first person to ever pioneer that was Rich Gaspari. He literally was the macro master. And if you watch his old interview, he said, I know every single thing that I'm putting in my body to a T, including the salt. And he said, a lot of these guys don't do this. And it's true. They didn't. They just said, I'm going to do half a chicken breast with, X amount of rice. He literally weighed everything out. Wow. He knew how much of aminos he was taking in, salt intake, everything to a T. And that was the science. That was the next step up. Wow. Yeah.
So you think he pioneered that, literally?
In my opinion, he was one of the pioneers.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because now it's common to weigh food.
It's
right?
super common to weigh food. Yeah. And now it's the only way for scientific data of what you're taking in. And to this day, I weigh my food all the time.
Is there a book that you could recommend someone if they want to be more conscious, staying to weighing their food? Like I'd imagine a chicken breast has been calculated out with how many kilocalories of protein, whatever. Is there a book out there where people can look, okay, an apple has blah, blah, blah. An orange has...
I'm not sure of a book, but I know there's a ton of apps.
Okay.
A ton of apps on your cell phone. So the one that I specifically like to use is Chronometer. I feel like it's the most accurate out there. Because if you put in, say I had 6 ounces of Kirkland chicken breast, all the macronutrients come right up on your phone.
Really?
Yeah. And it's pretty crazy. And I mean, people like MyFitnessPal, but I've found that most of the stuff they had on there was inaccurate. So Chronometer is the one that I've been using, and I feel like it is the most accurate.
Wow. So again, we're talking to Josh Connor about physical fitness and nutrition, and we've talked about the big 3, exercise itself, rest and recuperation, and of course, nutrition. Do you feel that, I've taken a lot of bodies, I use that term loosely, out into the field, alive, to train, right? And someone might be hypoglycemic. Someone might need this or that. When we're on courses where I feed them for part of the time, I don't want to say dietary restrictions, but clearly from my perspective, there's differences, whether it's a food allergy or whatever. Do you feel that people in general have basic nutritional needs outside of allergies and whatever? Are we pretty much good to go in a generalized area, or is there some radical differences between people?
I feel that we are as a whole pretty basic and the same. I think what's separated us is lifestyles.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is I feel like we tend to create our own problems. if that makes sense.
Yes.
And just whether it's, stress induced, bad habit induced, your body tends to do weird things when it's under duress. But I think as a whole, we were all meant to kind of have the same metabolism in a way and, process the same things, the beets, the carbohydrates, whatever it is. But I feel like because of everything that's influenced us as a whole, that's what's caused the separation. And that's what's caused the sicknesses, the allergies and whatnot.
This is a wild card question that I don't know if you'll have an answer for or not, because it's kind of a different bent on it. Have you read anything or studied anything about how stress on the human body deteriorates nutrition at all?
Oh, well, actually, it's funny you say that, because on a personal level, I have experienced that, and I'm still experiencing it with my current wife, who is going through a really hard time right now with what's happening to her body. Stress plays a huge factor, a gigantic factor. And say someone has what's called adrenal fatigue or exhaustion,
Mm-hmm.
your cortisol levels are through the roof. So even if you're at the most extreme calorie deficit, it doesn't know the difference, and it'll continue to pack on weight because of the cortisol. So it's a really sad thing to watch, because it's like no matter what you do, you're not going to beat that portion of it.
I don't understand the physiology. Cortisol is tricking the body into holding on to calories. Is that what you're saying?
Cortisol puts you continually in fight or flight mode.
Okay.
All the time. So your body doesn't know how to rest and digest. And because it doesn't know how to rest and digest, the calories aren't actually being properly digested.
Would that person literally poo out food that wasn't utilized properly by the body?
Yes, and that's exactly what it causes, is irritable bowel syndrome. That's one of the side effects of adrenal fatigue. So it's pretty crazy what happens when your body is stuck in a cycle. It really can't absorb nutrients the way it's supposed to. And that's why you have a lot of people today with IBS and all kinds of stuff, because as a society, we are pretty stressed out.
Sure.
Yeah, we're always trying to, make the next big thing or get the next big item or have a house and feel secure. It's a pretty high stress lifestyle, and especially with, the economy and everything.
Right.
Everybody's stressed out, but you just have to learn how to manage the stress. That's
as far as the physiological reactions to what we're talking about, this isn't really appropriate for a multi-day survival situation in the field. This would, or would it be, or is this more like sustained weeks and weeks and weeks before you'd see these manifestations in the body of what you're talking about? Do you know?
Yeah, it kind of is a little bit on the subtle side. Before you know, you wake up, you're like, what happened?
Jesus. Yeah.
And you can feel it. You can feel something's wrong, but you just don't know what. And the sleeplessness and all that stuff, it just kind of starts to really add up.
So it's over accumulation of several days or weeks before someone would experience that.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm curious, what's an example of your diet? What does Josh Connor eat in one day? And you're not cutting for a contest. Just give me a general Josh day when you're training regularly. What do you eat?
So I used to be very strict and just only eat one thing all the time, right? But then I realized that that's not good for your guts at all. Like, it's not good for your microbiome and your intestines. You have to branch out and eat different things. So I've been really big on eating a probiotic coconut style yogurt in the morning with a protein powder and blueberries. And that to me is just like a treat every morning. But it helps my guts. It helps me to absorb more nutrition. So then
throughout that one day?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the rest of my day is basically compiled of a mixture of high glycemic carbs with low glycemic carbs, different styles of protein, so poultries, red meats, and then essential fats. So I'll go anywhere from nut butters to, like, say, avocados. And I try to keep my macros in check even in the off season, just depending on what my performance is going to be that day. So, like, say for leg day, I'm going to eat more carbohydrates always. Chest and back day, kind of moderate carbohydrates.
Complex carbs or simple for the leg day?
A mixture of both. So I'll usually do the simple either right before or right after my workout, and I'll do the complex during my downtime. so my body can digest it properly, and it's not thrown.
Do you feel if you ate chicken all the time, do you feel there's a certain point where the body, I don't want to say fails to absorb that, what is it, 3.7 kilocalories per gram in protein or something like that? Do you feel it's important to rotate different protein types to get maximum absorption of that protein for building muscle tissue?
I do.
Why?
I just feel like after time, your body will no longer process it like it should. The intestines are a tricky thing. I actually had a friend that was a bodybuilder as well, and her nutritionist told her, you're having gut issues because you're eating the same thing all the time.
Wow.
And he said, you really need to start eating something different so your microvilli, your intestines, can actually break it down, because it's so used to this pattern now, it's not doing its job anymore. And I thought that was really interesting because I ate the same way for so long. And I kind of ran into the same issues. Like I started to have, stomach issues. And then I started changing things up. And then before I know it, I'm not really having stomach issues anymore. And my biggest thing was eggs. I used to eat close to 20 egg whites a day. And it's almost like I developed an allergy to them. So now I probably will have an egg or two every now and then. But I haven't really gotten back into eating eggs because they started making me sick. So I do believe that's a real thing because I personally experienced it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And I have another question. It's the very next one. And now those wild cards with what you just said, what is your opinion of the perfect protein? I know there's variables on that from what you just said.
Yeah, there is. So the perfect protein for the longest time was the egg, the most highest absorbed amino acid. But that doesn't work for me now. And I don't know if it's just the way they process the eggs. Things have changed a lot in terms of food processing. I feel like the only way you can really get a true protein is through an organic structure, so organic eggs. Like you have to be able to have a high budget to eat properly. But I also feel that red meat is the perfect protein because it is full of amino acids. It is full of iron. It's full of everything essential for the human body, including, essential fats.
Mm-hmm.
So red meat, whether it be bison or cow, I think is a really good protein source. I prefer bison. I feel like every time I eat bison, I just feel better. Like my body feels better and I feel a little more rejuvenated. It's a strange feeling.
And that's store-bought bison. Obviously, you're not out there with an atlatl hunting them, right?
Correct. Yeah.
But I'm sure you know people that hunt. What's your opinion on wild game as far as what we're talking about?
But to me, wild game hunting, if that's what you want to do, it's the best source you can get.
Yeah.
Because it is free from mutation of any sort.
Mm-hmm.
So to me, it's like if you want to do that and that's your prerogative, go for it.
Now, I have an interesting egg question that I'm spending a lot of time in Mexico. And when I buy eggs in Mexico, they don't need to go in the refrigerator. They sit out on the shelf, which tells you they're being processed differently down there. They don't need refrigeration before they spoil. I know you don't know, but do you think you might have a different take for your body if you ate an egg that didn't need refrigeration or do you, I know you don't know, but I'm just curious because I've been eating a hell of a lot of eggs in Mexico. One, they taste better.
Yeah.
They literally taste better. The whites taste better and the yolk tastes better, and they don't take up any room in the refrigerator.
Right.
And I'm wondering if you ate those, if that would make a difference.
I guarantee it'd make a huge difference. And the reason I say that is because I've watched a lot of documentaries on people that eat, say, even pasta here in the United States, and then they go to Italy and they eat pasta there. They have zero stomach issues. They have zero bloat. They come back from Italy actually weighing less than they did in America. So I feel like that's absolutely accurate. Their eggs are probably more pure. That's why they don't need to be in the refrigerator. And they probably are way more absorbed by the human body.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I can smuggle some eggs over the border for you to try.
All right. Sounds good.
So we'll see about that. Cheat days. Do you have any? If so, what type of foods do you eat?
Yeah, actually, I have my cheat days at least, once or twice. Well, I want to say once or twice a month, sometimes even 3. Depends on how hard I train. My favorite go-to is pizza. And I prefer one out of all, mod pizza, because I can make it the way I need it.
I don't know what that means.
Mod pizza is actually a chain of pizzas.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah. So you can get cauliflower crust. You don't have to get gluten. You can get gluten-free crust. And I have a dairy allergy, so I get dairy-free cheese. And I'm able to make the pizza exactly the way I want, and I enjoy the hell out of it.
What do you mean make it exactly the way you want?
Well, so like most pizzas, when you go and you order pizza, you know, they say you get like a chicken pizza. There's like 3 morsels of chicken on the entire pizza, right? You're like, oh, wow, I'm really full now. So with me, it's great because they will literally make it any way you want. So if you tell them, hey, I want a ton of chicken, they put a ton of chicken on it. And then they put a ton of veggies on it. And then they'll put, you know, I just ask for a little bit of cheese. I don't like a lot of cheese. And I just get the diet style cheese. And then they put it in the fire oven, comes out, and it's just perfect for me. And that's the way I like it.
What a great ad for Mod Pizza, right?
Yeah, right.
So, okay, we got your cheat. The macronutrients in foods, we've danced around them. We haven't really talked about them. They are proteins, carbs, and fats, right? The 3 macronutrients. Is there an emphasis on those 3 for strength training? And then is there an emphasis on those 3 about what someone should do for cardiovascular training?
Okay, that's a really good question. Strength training is kind of a mid-balance, in my opinion. So you have to have high amounts of fat because you have to supply your body with adequate testosterone, especially if you're lifting heavy weights. So you want your poly and, you know, good unsaturated fats to be a little bit higher. Carbohydrates don't really have to necessarily be as high as endurance training because you're not burning through it like you would in endurance training. You are burning through it in small segments. So to me, the carbohydrate aspect could be moderate. So say for an instance, personally my daily intake of carbs is somewhere between 250 to 275 grams. I still get massive pumps. I still lift a lot of heavy weights, and it works well without putting on extra weight. Someone that's going to do a 5K, they're going to have to probably go a little less on the fats and a little more on the carbohydrates because their body is dependent upon carbohydrates. So they might go from anywhere between 500 to 800 grams of carbs, depending on how much they're going to run that day. And most of it's going to be in the form of simple sugars. So like dextrose and probably fructose and all kinds of different things. It's not necessarily they're going to sit down and eat a massive amount of sweet potatoes. It's going to be, I want to drink this 32-ounce Gatorade that has over 200 grams of carbs in it. And then I'm going to go, you know, eat X amount of fruit to keep my body going. So if you're training for endurance, I want to say your protein's still moderate. Your fats are kind of moderate, and then your carbohydrates are very high. If you're training for strength training, your protein's high, your fat's relatively high, and your carbohydrates are moderate.
Okay.
And that's just because you are definitely tapping on 2 different systems in your body.
Sure.
So
the fast twitch, slow twitch.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
So I asked you about your favorite protein. For strength training, what's your favorite carb? And for cardio training, that 5K person, what's a favorite carb you'd have for that?
Okay. Favorite carb for weight training is cream of rice. I love that stuff.
Cream of rice.
Cream of rice.
What the hell I've never heard of that.
Yeah, you just buy it where the oatmeals are, and it's just condensed white rice. Like it's just powdered white rice. So I like it because you can make it into a really good pre-workout carb. You can put all kinds of stuff in it, fruits, peanut butters.
Would you call that a complex or a simple carb?
That's a simple.
Got it.
Definitely a simple carb.
Okay, how about complex?
So complex would be something more along the lines of like a sweet potato or something along the lines of like overnight oats, something that digests slower. So even brown rices and other moderate potatoes like purple sweet potatoes are very good complex carb.
And you feel between strength training and cardio, I brought up both those separate categories. Do you have a preference on the simple or complex carbs for either one of those, or do you feel good about what you said for both of those categories?
I think both those categories work well. And like I said, if I were going to train for a marathon, I'd probably be pounding lots of Gatorade too, to be honest.
Why?
Just the dextrose in it to keep your body going. And on top of it, it has the electrolyte balance. I know there's probably different, better forms of a Gatorade version. but the dextrose and the electrolytes are really important for that kind of output.
Period, or in hot climates?
That's a good question. I want to say probably more so in hot climates, but good in general.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is super fascinating, right? Because again, we're trying to keep the body alive. A lot of people eat like crap, at least in the United States of America. And you can think about what Josh is talking about in relation to maybe your survival kit or your camping kit or your gear, whatever you want to call it, for stuff. And I'll ask him that question too about what you might be packing based on macronutrients. So we've done that for strength training. We've talked about cardiovascular training. I'll just ask you right now. Well, we've got some other questions here, but let me ask you this one. There are so many bars out there. I know you're mostly into just whole foods, but there's a lot of bars. If someone was camping or had a bug out pack or had a survival kit and they wanted the perfect blend of oh shit, right? Which means I'm going to need some glucose. I'm going to need some simple carbs. I'm going to need complex. And I know I'm asking for the world here, but you're only eating one thing in this pre-prepared package deal that has to keep for a while because no one rotates their stuff. They should, but they don't.
Right.
That something's wrong. You're lost on the day hike and you reach into your fanny pack. What am I pulling out?
That's a really good question because I feel like today's bars really suck. Back in the early 2000s, they were great. And if I were to go back in time, I'd say grab one of those bars. I honestly haven't done a lot of research on that. But I know most of them today are just a chemical nightmare.
Yeah.
Like they're just full of processed foods and processed sweeteners. But back in the day, VPX used to make this bar, and I forget what it was called, but Zero Impact bar. It was a whole food bar, and it was perfect. It was essential fats, essential carbs, and essential proteins. And they actually stopped making it because they couldn't keep it on the shelf long enough because they went bad. And I don't think they perfected it since, but that's why you see a lot of these bars, they just sit on the shelves. So if I were to say anything at this point, from the little research I've done on bars, you're still better off with Cliff bars than anything else at this point. Because if you get something like a barbell bar or even a Quest bar, you're probably going to crash within a couple hours.
So notice what he said, pemmican. Some of you listening to this will recognize that. It was usually back in the way day, that might have been dried deer meat, processed fat from that animal, and whatever berry was on. So we have the carbohydrates, we have the proteins, and we have the fats called pemmican that was native people's go food, at least on the North American continent. So I figured you'd say something like that, but there's clearly a market for this. Wake up. Do what he just said, but the problem is stabilizing that enough on this. Do you know what the shelf life of those bars were before they crashed?
I don't know. I used to go to High Health a lot when it was still around here, and I know they would throw those bars out pretty much every month. So right. It would be expired or to be, on clearance because they were going bad.
I know that the best fats for us go rancid the most quickly, unfortunately, because I do a lot of research on food storage. Do you know if it was the fat in that bar that was going rancid?
My guess is it is, because when you took that bar out, it's almost like you would feel the oil on it. You would feel the fats on it.
I know that.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was probably the fatal link.
Yep. And then I also remember EAS used to make a really good bar similar to that called the Myoplex bar. And now EAS, I don't even think exists anymore. But I used to eat those all the time during my wrestling matches because they were quick. They were on the go. They gave me lots of energy for a long time. And the taste wasn't that great, but it's like you weren't eating it for taste. You're eating it for performance.
Right.
Yeah.
For fuel.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of stored food online. There's a lot of, everyone's got their opinion about what you should have under the bed for stored food and blah, blah, blah. If you were to store food for a grid down shelter in place emergency, so you're with your sweetie and you're at home and the zombies are outside and you don't want them inside, grid down shelter in place emergency, what type of foods would you store and why? Generic. And then I'm going to go down the rabbit hole and define more of that for our listeners.
I thought about this question, and So one thing's for sure, I would have a sufficient protein source of protein powders would be the way to go for me. Probably dry freeze fruit, meat, lots of water, obviously. I'd probably also have on hand things with dextrose and electrolytes. And then the best of my ability, it would just depend on how much my storage space would be, but I would try to keep everything that can be preserved as long as it can, as well as nutritious. So, nut butter fats, things like that, because obviously you can't bring avocados in a shelter and expect them to be good within a week. They're going to go bad. So I thought a lot about this, and I think probably going to lean more towards the process side of things just to survive. So that would be
because of the longevity of the storage of the product.
Exactly. Yeah. It's not like you can just keep, meats around without a proper refrigeration and you'd be okay. So at that point, I'd probably go into survival mode where it would be that kind of stuff. So I'd make sure I'd have my carbohydrates, my fats, my proteins, and adequate hydration.
Okay. And I'm going to go down the rabbit hole on that. I'm going to get it more defined. I hate generic questions, but I have to ask you some. But I'm a real big fan of rabbit holes. And I mean that in a good way, about actually knowing what in the hell we're talking about and going through the details that a lot of people want to just gloss over. So here, now you have limited space and weight considerations. Not saying you need to be mobile. It might be grid down at your home. What types, with limited space and weight considerations, what types of food would you pack to maximize maintaining strength?
Yeah. Okay. So now that is definitely a different question. To me, at that point, I'm going to say that it's going to be a short-term thing. I would want probably adequate hydration again, and probably more carbohydrate, fat-based stuff. The protein you can probably do without for a period.
Really? For the strength training?
Yeah. So the carbohydrates are what's going to keep your body on a cellular level active. The proteins can hold off for a little bit. But if I were to go into a survival mode of just a short period of time, I would probably go more in that direction, to be honest.
I'm interested in more what's in your head about your answer on that. I thought for sure you dump protein powder even almost over water, but you're saying more carbs over protein. Now, I didn't give you a duration, right? That's the wild card. We didn't get into for 2 weeks.
Right.
Tell me the physiology about why protein can take a back seat in the context of this question and carbs take the front seat.
Okay. So when you're in a situation where your body has to be basically prepared for anything, the amino acid structures in your body are still active no matter what. So it's like that whole, I'm going to go down this one, the whole premise of the anabolic time window. That is now kind of a scientific fallacy, because your body's already breaking down amino acids. So it's already got protein structures within them. So you don't have to eat the perfect meal an hour after your workout anymore. It could be up to 2 to 3 hours. You're still processing your body the same way.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So your body will still break down the amino acid structures. It will still supply the adequate amount of protein that it has stored. However, I feel like your body would be more remiss to lack of carbohydrates, especially when it comes to situations that might include survival. So if I was to, say, have a backpack on and I'm out in the middle of the woods and all of a sudden I see a bear and I have to sprint the hell out of there, I would probably want more carbs in my system than proteins, because I know that it's going to keep me going faster for a longer period.
To bring in cortisol, because when people are looking at their death, they're going to be scared.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that's a fact. If you have a survival instructor that says they can make you immune from fear and keep you alive forever, they're lying to your face. If we bring in adrenaline, cortisol, and stress, in regards to proteins and carbs, do the carbs still outweigh the protein? Do they hold up better against the cortisol? Or is that,
I haven't really done any research on that, but my assumption would be yes. And the only reason I say that is because on a cellular level, if you're going to start having more mitochondrial output, you're going to want more essential carbs in your system.
He said the word mitochondria. I like him more already. I love mitochondria as
Yeah.
far as doing what you can do in cold weather with limited stuff.
Yes.
Okay, I understand. Now here's the flip of that question. You have limited space and weight considerations. There's no time context. What type of foods would you pack to maximize endurance or cardiovascular fitness, not strength?
Okay. Understood. So again, I think I would probably go more towards what I said previously. And if I'm thinking it's a longer duration, I would definitely have some sort of protein source as well, but just not as heavy reliant on it as I would be with the carbohydrates.
So carbs are kind of the winner on both of those questions.
Yes. And I think more so towards like survival situations. I think it is, because protein is an essential thing for sure. And it, like I said, it just builds amino acid structures of the body, hair, nails, skin growth, all that stuff, muscle structures. But when it comes to absolute survival, I think your carbohydrates might be the better bet to fuel your body for what it needs, including like long treks or quick durations of sprints, things like that.
Interesting. I have, turning the page now on this conversation, have a couple more questions. This is a survival show, so I have to ask. Here's another question. You have limited space, period. What types of food would you store that take up the least amount of space, but would provide you with the greatest amount of calories to theoretically live longer? So nutrition, we're talking about you don't want to go into malnutrition and starvation with you and your sweetheart. You have limited space. What types of food, calorie-dense food, would you store to be able to last the longest amount of time as far as the human body living and not malnutrition out and starving?
Would this be in terms of I had preparation or?
Yes, you got full prep, but you have limited space.
Okay. So I would basically do power condensed oatmeal protein balls.
Tell me more about that.
Well, it's basically you mix the protein powder, you mix peanut butter and oatmeal, right? You get it all in there and you make them into little balls, so like protein balls. I would pack a ton of those because it's a complex carb, it's essential fats and protein.
So it's the modern pemmican we're looking for.
Yes, exactly.
Say it one more time for.
Yeah, so it's basically rolled oats, protein powder, and peanut butter, and you mix them all together and you put them in little condensed balls and then take them with you. And to me, that would be the greatest source of nutrition you can get for the most amount of limited space.
Interesting. And what do you think? Again, we talked about oxidation of fats. What do you think's I know some of the white trash peanut butter is stabilized, and we don't care in this case. Mm-hmm. We're not trying to be perfectly nutritionally savvy with organic. I just don't want to run out of food and starve to death. That's the context of the question.
Right.
Would you go more toward that white trash peanut butter just because it's stabilized in the context of this question?
Yes.
Okay.
I would. Yeah, because and I feel like it would hold everything better together.
Sure.
And for longer.
Do you know, have you done any, I would love to see this thing in here's how many grams of fat and protein carbs. How big would you make those balls, and how many would you eat if you had an unlimited supply? If you had to live on it and maintain Josh weight, how many of those, what size, and how many would you eat per day? And then, in your opinion, you're going to be losing a lot of weight, obviously. What's bare bones? Like now we're in survival rations. The reason I'm asking this question is food's a big deal in long-term survival. Obviously, there's a lot of stories you can read of real people, especially back in the day, shipbound sailors or whatever, that end up eating Fred or something, or eating the dog sled team or whatever that is, where people go into, let's pull back and let's go into survival ration mode. Now, people in the U.S. at least are not into rationing. We're into basically eating everything at once. Not a good survival strategy. Right. So Josh is maintaining Josh's weight. What's the size of the ball? How many are you eating per day? And then how many per day extreme survival ration, not dying, not going into total ketoacidosis, right? But you're going to be losing body weight.
Okay. So if I were just to generally calculate in my head, You have to be like 4-ounce bowls. I probably have to eat like 30 a day.
Well, and how big is that about?
So yeah, about that big.
Wow. So
Yeah.
like orange size, small orange?
Small orange, yeah. I probably have to eat like 30 of those a day to maintain this.
Right.
To maintain just survival, I'd be lucky to get 5. So, and then, yeah, it's like that muscle mass loss, all that stuff would happen.
Those are huge. I thought you'd be talking about golf ball size, but you're talking about a big tangerine or a small orange. Right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know if you've ever been to the Protein House in Scottsdale.
I have not.
Okay. Yeah. Their peanut butter balls are like that big.
No kidding.
Yeah. So that's exactly what I would do.
Okay.
Make them that portion. So they're easily, you can easily access them and bite them as you go. It's not just one bite and you're done.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. You train people still?
Yes.
How can they reach you?
They can reach me through, they can call Champions Gym. They can call my cell phone. I really, haven't been active on social media in a while, but, if you're going to go to my Instagram, it's, Josh, the Slayer Connor on Instagram, and you can message me there for training.
What we'll do is, at the end of the show in the credits, we'll have Tony, our producer extraordinaire, put all of Josh's contact information in the credits. So you'll have a physical representation of that. I have one more thing that I do. This involves Tony, our producer extraordinaire, and it's called Make Tony Titter. And so I have this invisible joke book. It's invisible magic because it is, at least for our viewers. It's very funny jokes. I'm hoping that we can judge a book by its cover in this case, right? It's funny. And I don't know how many I'm going to have to tell him before he titters. Now, if you look up the word titter, it's kind of like kind of a nervous laugh. I just want to make him laugh. Now, the reason I want to make Tony laugh is he worked at Cartoon Network for many years. So he's an authority on what's funny because he's been making kids laugh for many, many, many years. So I want you to write down, we'll keep it away from Tony, how many jokes do you think I'm going to have to tell Tony to make him titter? 1, 2, 3, whatever. That'll be private between us. Now I'm warning you, this book is invisible and it's magical, but it's got some potent jokes in here. So that's all I'll say, right? Okay. So I got Josh's. Okay, Tony, you ready for this?
I am.
And Josh, if you laugh, which I'm sure you will because they're fantastic jokes, that's totally okay. So the pressure's on Tony. But what I'm going to do with this invisible, magical, funny joke book is I'm going to just randomly open a page. None of this is pre-programmed, and I'm going to read it, and we're going to see what Tony thinks. Tina. Literally, this is random. I hired a handsome bodybuilder to teach me how to lift weights. Gina, do you want to build up your muscles? Tina, no, but I'm hoping a romance will develop. Okay, nothing from Tony. Isn't that ironic? Josh is hysterical, but why shouldn't he be? Because that was made for him.
Apropos.
What kind of fish has perfect pitch? A piano tuna. There we go. You titter. That was 2.
That was not bad. Not bad.
So what Josh had, oh ye of little faith in my good joke book, she had 6. But still, that was, you give yourself some latitude. Ironically, the bodybuilder joke was first. Who could have calculated that? So we'll put the funny joke book away. I want to thank Josh Connor a lot for being here. I am fascinated with physical fitness, nutrition. It's a huge part of you staying alive in an emergency situation, what to pack, what to prepare for in a grid down survival kit in your home, or maybe a go bag or whatever that is. Thanks, man.
Hey, thank you
for coming in
and
on the Keep Your Ass Alive. So what we're going to have, again, Josh's information on the tail end. Leave us a comment if you want, or maybe ask a question that you want potentially answered on Keep Your Ass Alive at keepyourassalive@gmail.com. So email us. We'll catch you next episode on Keep Your Ass Alive. Stay safe. Hey campers, so that's it for this episode of Keep Your Ass Alive. Tune in next time and we'll talk to people just like you about survival advice or whatever floats your boat. Want to watch the only survival show on Earth, created, hosted, and produced by a real survival instructor? Check out The Survival Show with Cody Lundeen at thesurvivalshow.com. Want to take your learning to the next level? Please visit my Aboriginal Living Skills School at www.codylundeen.com. We offer field courses in modern outdoor survival, primitive living skills, or urban preparedness to enhance your self-reliance, confidence, and safety in the city or the wilderness.
Visit www.codylundeen.com today.